Early morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Harborview Library, illuminating rows of neatly organized books. Emma, the librarian, took a moment to straighten a small display of newly arrived historical novels near the entrance. Her footsteps echoed softly against the polished wood floors, a gentle reminder of the pervasive quiet that had become her companion during work hours. Outside, the waves of the Atlantic lapped lazily at the shore, visible past the library's old cathedral windows. She breathed in the comforting scent of old pages mingled with sea salt, recalling the day she applied for this position 2 years prior. Harborview's subtle charm and the library's storied past had made the decision easy. She was exactly where she was meant to be. That particular morning, she felt an odd urgency tugging at her as she checked returned books on the circulation desk. One of her elderly patrons, Mr. Grant, had dropped off a donation earlier, a small box containing estate items from a relative who passed away. Mr. Grant knew that the library sometimes used historical artifacts to decorate, or else displayed them to spark the interest of local history buffs. The light inside the library glinted off the dusty items as Emma gingerly pulled them from the box. Nestled among tattered letters and an old diary was a tarnished silver locket. Its chain was delicate and fine, and the locket itself bore an intricate floral design that appeared half hidden behind years of tarnish. She held the locket up to the light and squinted at the engraved initials scrawled in a gentle loop. M.W. The back of the piece also featured a tiny anchor emblem, suggesting some connection to Harborview's long-established maritime heritage. Emma's heart fluttered with curiosity. Locket in hand, she examined the clasp. With a light click, she pried it open and found a faded miniature photograph inside. The image showed a young woman smiling coyly, dressed in 1920s attire, hair bobbed short beneath a flapper-style hat. The edges of the photograph were yellowed, the face inside almost unrecognizable. Inside the cover, barely visible, were the initials L.W. This discrepancy in letters, M.W. on the outside, L.L.W. on the inside, sparked 1,000 questions in Emma's mind. That day, she tried to focus on her usual tasks, shelving books, assisting visitors, finalizing the library newsletter. But every time she passed by the circulation desk, her gaze drifted to the locket. She found herself imagining the woman in the black and white photo, wondering if the relationship between M.M.L.W. might have been a key to some long-forgotten story. By mid-afternoon, with the library's lull in activity, she pulled out the old diary from Mr. Grant's donation box. Perhaps it held answers. Its spine crackled as Emma opened it, turning delicate pages filled with spidery cursive. The earliest entry dated back to 1930. Emma scanned the lines eagerly, but emotions quickly flickered across her face as she realized the diary was incomplete. Chunks of pages were missing, torn out at some point. Emma's best lead was the antique locket. She reasoned that if Mr. Grant's family had it, then he might possess information or additional relics that connected the item to Harborview's past. Intrigued and energized by this puzzle, she decided a quiet inquiry wouldn't hurt. After all, the library served as the heart of the town's historical records, and she had unique access to further data. Maybe the genealogical archives would shine a light on the M.W. or L.W. in question. So she set off on a mission. She delicately placed the locket into a velvet pouch for safekeeping, tucked it into her cardigan pocket, and resolved to do some sleuthing of her own. Later that evening, Emma closed up the library and walked home beneath the glow of Harborview's quaint street lamps. The warm golden lights lined the cobblestone streets that sloped gently down to the sea, giving the village an almost otherworldly feel. Harborview had a consistent hush about it, as though time trickled at half the normal pace. In that calm, she found herself plotting how to approach Mr. Grant. He often spent afternoons in the small rose garden behind the library, feeding the pigeons and reading old newspaper clippings. Tomorrow, She could casually mention the box he'd donated and inquire if he knew anything more about the locket and its mysterious origins. At home, she set her bag by the door of her cozy apartment and placed the locket gently on the coffee table. She brewed a pot of tea and curled up in the armchair, eyes skimming through the diary's readable pages. A few passages caught her attention. References to someone described only as M, and fleeting notes about secret voyages on a fishing boat named the Amity. Scribbled side notes mentioned a dispute with an older generation of residents, but the writer never provided details. This half-revealed tension made Emma's imagination roam to shadowy conspiracies or ancient feuds. Perhaps it was only innocence, though. Harborview was a small town. Small towns had big rumors. But she couldn't shake the spark of intrigue. Emma's eyes soon drifted to the dancing flames in her fireplace. She couldn't help but think about the kind smile on the face in the photo. Who was the woman? She pictured her walking these same streets almost a century ago, stepping past the library, maybe even visiting it. If the photograph was from the 1920s, the library building already existed back then, a beacon of knowledge for coastal communities. Harborview, steeped in sea legends, smugglers' tales and maritime tragedies, had a labyrinth of stories that had never been fully told. Emma found that thought both thrilling and intimidating. Intimidating. The following day, Emma greeted the crisp morning with a renewed sense of purpose. She set the locket on the circulation desk, reminding herself to be bold and question Mr. Grant. True to schedule, just after lunch, he strolled in to return a stack of newspapers he'd borrowed from the archives. A gentle soul in his late 70s, Mr. Grant wore a threadbare cardigan, each elbow patched with leather. His voice was coated with the same depth and warmth as the rolling tides. Emma offered him her usual bright smile, noticing the slight confusion in his eyes as she placed the donation box on the counter. "Thank you again for these items you brought in yesterday, Mr. Grant," she said softly. "They're certainly interesting. I was hoping you could tell me a bit more about them, particularly this locket." She picked it up carefully, letting it dangle from her fingers. "Was it your relatives?" Mr. Grant adjusted his horn-rimmed glasses and leaned closer. "I wasn't sure what exactly was in that box, dear," he replied. "It belonged to my late cousin Edwin, who was quite the collector of knickknacks. He inherited a lot from our great-aunt Mabel." Emma nodded politely. "There's an inscription on the front, M.Y. And inside I noticed a photograph of a woman." She lowered her voice. "Have you heard of anyone in your family or your aunt's circle with those initials?" Mr. Grant took the locket, squinting. Mabel's name was Mabel Wilson, the same initials, but I wasn't aware she owned a locket. Could be hers. She did live in Harborview a while." He gently shook his head, handing it back. "My dear, I have to be honest. I don't know who that woman in the photograph might be. It might have been her mother, Lucy Wilson, but then the letters on the inside, L.W. That could stand for Lucy, yes?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. "So, your great-aunt Mabel might have had a mother named Lucy." "Precisely," he said. "But I really can't be certain. If it stokes your curiosity, perhaps you could poke around in the old genealogical records. The name Lucy Wilson might show up. I can't promise anything, but that might be your best lead." Emma wasted no time. That evening, long after the library's closing time, she found herself hunched over a table on the upper floor that housed the local genealogical archives. She retrieved a few dusty tomes labeled Families of Harborview and began flipping through them. The diaries and letters from Mr. Grant's donation lay spread around her. She felt an odd thrill at uncovering genuine historical mysteries. Most librarians engaged the past through cataloguing or referencing queries. Rarely did they get to piece together lost evidence from half-forgotten figures. After an hour of scanning, she came across a line in the Families of Harborview referencing Lucy Wilson, born 1902, died 1949. It stated that Lucy had married a man named Martin Whitehouse in 1927. The note concluded, Lucy Wilson Whitehouse disappeared in 1929 under suspicious circumstances. Body never found. Survived by daughter Mabel Whitehouse. Emma's breath caught. This was a lead far more dramatic than she had anticipated. The phrase, disappeared under suspicious circumstances, flashed at her like a warning. Part of her was both exhilarated and nervous. Harborview might be a peaceful place now, but perhaps in the late 1920s Lucy's disappearance had rattled the town. Continuing to read, Emma learned that Lucy's father was rumored to be involved in the illicit rum-running trade that flourished along the coast during Prohibition. Idle speculation suggested that Lucy might have also been caught up in that underworld, though no official charges or records were documented. But if that rumor was true, Emma realized, Lucy's disappearance might have been entangled in the whiskey smuggling business that thrived at that time. Like many coastal towns, Harborview was once a prime location for covert shipping deals under the cover of darkness. She made careful notes, cross-referencing diaries and letters. One of the diary passages mentioned Mem. Could be Martin, Lucy's husband, or Mabel, her daughter. Each possibility led to new angles and complexities. The partial diary seemed to hint that Lucy had been meeting somebody at night near the old pier to plan a future away from Harborview. The final entries abruptly stopped, though, leaving an aura of mystery around Lucy's fate. Emma touched the locket on the table, her mind buzzing with questions. Had Lucy planned to flee with that locket in her pocket? Had she left it to Mabel, or had Mabel discovered it much later, ensuring it stayed within the family? Over the next few days, Harborview bustled with a small arts festival on the docks. Emma balanced her usual library responsibilities with discreet detective work. Twice she made visits to the local archives in the town hall, rummaging through old newspaper microfilms. She discovered vintage headlines, local woman missing, foul play suspected, and Harborview rum-running scandal heats up. Lucy Wilson's name popped up again. The brief mentions reported that a search party had combed the beaches for days, finding no sign of her, aside from footprints leading to a rocky outcrop near the coast. Friends described Lucy as an independent spirit with a deep fascination for the sea and a desire to travel. Her husband, Martin, was listed in the same newspapers as a fisherman who occasionally journeyed to Boston to sell his weekly catch. But the tone of the articles hinted at more clandestine work. Martin's name was repeatedly linked to the Amity, the boat Emma had read about in the diary. The boat apparently sank under mysterious circumstances only weeks after Lucy's disappearance. One cool moonlit night, Emma found herself on Harborview's old pier, listening to the waves lap against the barnacle-covered posts. She held the locket in her hand, letting the chain slip through her fingers as though Lucy's ghost might appear out of the swirling waters. She watched reflections of the moon bounce off the water's surface, creating shimmering pathways. Harborview felt like a layered tapestry of the living and the dead, of secrets locked within hearts for decades. Silently, Emma promised Lucy that she would do her best to uncover the truth. Admiral Oliphant, Emma's next breakthrough, arrived with an unexpected ally. Mrs. Davenport, the town's Historical Society president and a regular library patron, stopped by for her habitual afternoon reading. Emma approached her shyly, explaining her research about Lucy's disappearance. Mrs. Davenport's eyes lit with that same spark of curiosity that Emma found so compelling. "I do recall hearing something growing up," Mrs. Davenport said in her measured tone. "My grandmother used to whisper about a scandal involving the Whitehouse family. People suspected Lucy might have run off, possibly with another man, but other rumors were darkersome, said Martin was desperate to hide his bootlegging operation from the authorities, and Lucy knew too much." She pursed her lip. "We should check the Society's archives for diaries, letters, or photographs. It's possible we'll find references to Lucy that never made it into official records." Thrilled, Emma arranged to meet Mrs. Davenport at the Society's building the next day. They combed through shelves of scrapbooks, ledgers, and collections of letters donated by families that shaped Harborview's history. Hours passed in a flurry of dusty pages and hushed exclamations. Finally, near the bottom of a trunk stuffed with old mooring documents, they uncovered a small envelope labeled Lucy's Letters. The envelope contained 3 letters, each carefully folded and dated 1929. In shaky handwriting, Lucy wrote about her determination to escape Harborview, referencing the last fight with Martin, who she accused of threatening her if she ever exposed his dealings. The final letter ended abruptly. "I can't stay. I fear for what may happen if I do. My only choice is to board the Amity at midnight and leave with—" The text cut off. The page was torn as though Lucy never finished. Emma and Mrs. Davenport exchanged solemn glances. The suggestion was clear. Lucy might not have simply vanished. She might have planned to leave with someone else, possibly a person connected to the boat's clandestine business. Had Martin found out? Or had Lucy's confederate betrayed her? The weight of the past felt palpable in the silent archive room. That evening, Emma's mind replayed Lucy's final words over and over. She pictured the young woman boarding the Amity under a moonlit sky, heart pounding, hoping for freedom. Harborview could be both a peaceful setting for a new life and a suffocating trap for someone caught in illegal activities. Emma wondered if Lucy was truly lost at sea or if she managed to flee to another town and start anew. But the official record was grim. 1929 was the year the Amity sank off the coast. Wreckage located, no survivors found. It was indeed suspicious timing. Emma decided she needed closure. She confided in her friend Sarah, who worked part-time at the marina, hoping to see if any old logs or maritime records might give a clearer picture of the Amity's final trip. Sarah, full of unwavering loyalty, was eager to help. Together, they rifled through musty ledgers that documented fishing boat launches, cargo manifests, and insurance claims. After a painstaking search, they found a notation about the Amity's final voyage. It had set sail on August 3, 1929, never to return. The record indicated a crew of 3, including Martin. No mention of Lucy or an unidentified passenger. Yet the ledger contained something else, a strange note scribbled in the margin. "Wrong cargo, extra passenger, keep quiet." It wasn't signed. Emma's pulse quickened. If Lucy was that extra passenger, perhaps the Amity had indeed been carrying illegal rum, and Lucy wasn't supposed to be aboard. Prohibition officials might have found out, or Martin's associates might have decided Lucy was a liability. Suddenly, it seemed Lucy's disappearance wasn't a tragic accident, but a sinister event orchestrated under the cloak of criminal conspiracy. In the days that followed, Emma meticulously compiled her findings into a timeline. She wrote everything down: Lucy's known background, her rumored desire to flee, the Amity's final voyage, the rumored involvement of Martin with rum runners, the missing pages from diaries, and now the locket, possibly an heirloom that passed through Lucy's family line. Each piece formed a puzzle that placed Lucy at the center of a grander story than Emma had initially suspected. Emma realized her best bet might be to look at the coastline near the old cove at daybreak. Sometimes, receding tides revealed hidden secrets. If Lucy's footprints were last seen there, maybe there was some clue left behind. It was a long shot, but Emma felt drawn to the spot. She set her alarm early on a clear Saturday morning, grabbed a flashlight along with a small bag containing the locket and a camera, then headed down the rocky path leading to the cove. The tide was low, exposing clusters of large rocks and soggy patches of sand. Seaweed clung to every surface, draping them with a slippery green film. A persistent wind ruffled Emma's hair as she navigated carefully. She let her eyes roam, scanning for anything out of place. At first, she spotted only broken shells and driftwood. Then, to her surprise, she saw what looked like a piece of rusted metal jutting out from behind a group of rocks. Kneeling down, she noticed it resembled part of an old boat's hull. Barnacles had devoured the edges, Yet the faint remains of lettering suggested it might be from the Amity. Excitement pulsed through her. Could this be part of the lost ship? She snapped photos and busied herself brushing sand off the metal until a wave lapped in, forcing her back. A distant memory from the diary teased her thoughts. Lucy had planned to board the Amity at midnight. Could the locket she left behind or wore that night have fallen here? The notion was far-fetched, but it fueled Emma's lingering sense of quest. Another wave crashed, swirling around her ankles and soaking her sneakers. Emma sighed, stepping back. No more secrets revealed themselves in the cove's early morning hush, so she resolved to document her find in the library's local history archives. Emma's discoveries caused a flurry among the small circle of townspeople who cared about Harborview's lesser-known histories. Mrs. Davenport published a short piece in the Society's newsletter referencing the newly found hull fragment. Rumours circulated that the town might sponsor a small expedition to dive off the coast, searching for more wreckage from the Amity. If Lucy's body had never washed ashore, or if she survived, the final truth remained elusive. Still, Emma felt gratified to have awakened Harborview's curiosity about the fate of Lucy Wilson Whitehouse. One afternoon, just before closing, Emma noticed a tall, silver-haired man wandering the library aisles. She recognized him as Colonel Whitaker, a retired Navy officer who had recently moved back into his ancestral home in Harborview. He approached the desk with a mysterious glint in his eye. "Pardon me, Miss Emma. I've heard you're the unofficial keeper of Lucy Wilson's story now." "That's an overstatement, Colonel," she replied modestly. Though her curiosity was piqued, he cleared his throat. "I remember rummaging through my grandfather's trunk a few years ago. My grandfather was in the Coast Guard in the 1930s. I found a captain's log that mentioned Lucy's name, something about picking up a lone survivor off the coast, but I dismissed it as a rumor. Now, with all the talk around town, I feel compelled to see if I can locate it again. Would you be interested in taking a look if I find it?" Emma's heart fluttered. "Absolutely." A day later, Colonel Whitaker returned with a leather-bound logbook. Emma read the entry carefully. It was dated August 6, 1929, 3 days after the Amity vanished. The log stated that a routine patrol rescue found a half-drowned woman clinging to driftwood. She was identified only as LWW. The woman purportedly refused to return to Harborview, begging the Coast Guard to take her to a Boston hospital. After that note, the log offered no further details, but the date matches Lucy's disappearance, and the initials LW matched Lucy's name. Emma exchanged an awestruck look with Colonel Whitaker. Word spread quickly of the log's existence. Emma took it upon herself to cross-reference medical records in Boston. Though many older documents were lost or incomplete, she discovered a few hospital archives referencing an unnamed female patient admitted in critical condition, found off the coast near Harborview, meeting Lucy's age and approximate date of rescue. Then the trail went cold. It appeared the woman left the hospital under unknown circumstances. No formal record remained under the name Lucy Wilson Whitehouse. If Lucy survived, she might have assumed a new identity, living out her days free from Martin and the illicit rum-running world. Mabel, her daughter, no doubt came to believe her mother had passed away, or perhaps Lucy couldn't return for fear of endangering Mabel. The tragedy stood at an intersection of heartbreak and resilience. Emma gathered her conclusions into a small binder dedicated to Lucy's story, depositing it into the library's local history section. She carefully included copies of all relevant articles, diary entries, rescue logs, even her photos of the Amity's fragment. She placed the locket in a secure display case, along with the incomplete diary, so visitors could get a glimpse of Lucy's legacy. In the quiet hush of the library, people would pause at the display, heads bowed to read the story. A gentle sadness accompanied the images of the locket and the black and white photograph inside. Yet there was also hope hidden within this tale. Harborview residents whispered that perhaps Lucy had found a second chance. The plaque next to the display read, "Lucy Wilson Whitehouse, a Harborview mystery." with Emma's name beneath as the researcher. Whenever she passed by, Emma felt a peculiar mix of pride and wistfulness. Imagining Lucy's new life, she liked to think the woman eventually found happiness far from the constraints of a small town and a dangerous spouse. Late one evening, Emma lingered after closing. The library's lamps bathed the nook where Lucy's display stood in soft amber light. She traced a fingertip over the glass, thinking how a single antique locket had unravelled a tangled chapter in Harborview's history. It had revealed heartbreak and possible redemption. More than anything, it had proven that the past was never quite as distant as it seemed, waiting patiently for the right moment and the right person to uncover its secrets. Emma felt fortunate to be that person for Lucy, bringing her story back to a town that had once buried it. In that still moment, Emma visualized Lucy gently smiling from the photograph, relieved that the truth was out in the open. Harborview's hidden past was no longer hidden, and Emma, the quiet librarian driven by her love for knowledge, had found an unexpected adventure. Tomorrow, life in the small seaside village would continue at its unhurried pace. But for Emma, everything had changed. She would carry Lucy's legacy in her heart always, a gentle reminder that even the most ordinary of individuals can unearth extraordinary secrets, bridging time and memory in ways that make life that much richer.